guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Vanessa. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all of the Host for Prose book club picks.
It's the end of the year.
So if you didn't know what Host for Prose is, it's a book club that's run by me and my bestie Bree over at the Dr.B. And every month we've picked different books, or we've had our book club members, which we call our shovels because we're the hoes for prose. So other garden tools being shovels. Our guys in the group are called rakes. Anyways, we had a little garden theme going on here. But every month we pick a book that we're very interested in reading and reading with everybody else, and we've decided to do a ranking of all of our book club picks. Now I know Bree is going to be doing a little bit of a different style video, and you'll get to see all of her thoughts in her video, so make sure you go check that out. I will link her video down in the description below. I'm going to talk about the books in the order that I ranked them. So Bree might have a different story of what her number 1 is or what her number 12 is, but you'll have to go check out her video to see what it's all about. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go all the way up just to build the suspense. I think it would be no surprise to a lot of people if you've been following our book club that my number 12 pick, it's actually 12 and 13, because in the month of February we picked 2 books. We were very overly ambitious. You know, we started our book club in January and we're like, let's just go 2 books. And that was my month to pick. The books that I picked were A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. Well, I never got to A Fire Endless because I just could not get into A River Enchanted. And that's so sad because I absolutely love Divine Rivals. I just could not get into the writing style of this book. So I figured that I wouldn't get into the other one. I ended up DNFing the first book, and I have already sold those books, so I don't own them anymore. I got rid of those a long time ago, unhauled them, they're out of my life. So sadly, it is not for me, and it is books number 12 and 13 on this list, but they're kind of tied for 12 because they were in the same month. So the 11th book on my list is actually a book that I gave 4 stars. So it is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Now this wasn't a terrible book, so just because it's number 11 doesn't mean that it was terrible. Like I said, it was a 4-star for me, but I only have 12 spots and I just liked other books better. So this one is a retelling or reimagining of The House of the Fall of the Usher, The Fall of the House Usher, The Fall of the House of the Usher, The Fall of the House of Usher. I actually did end up reading The Fall of the House of Usher. It's only 36 pages. That's by Edgar Allan Poe. So I did read like a classic this year, which is pretty cool. But it does really resemble this story, or this story resembles that book. This was a little confusing to get into at first. I will say I probably read this earlier on in my like horror journey, so this was our June pick. I was still kind of learning what I liked in horror. Now this was pretty cool. This did have some really good descriptions of the fungal growth around the Usher's property, and you start learning about the declining health of the Usher family and what happens to all of them. This actually reminded me of, if you've ever seen The Last of Us with the cordyceps, that's what I had going on in my mind the entire time that I was like reading this and just like seeing these little fungal growth things. There's a television show now based on The House of the Fall of Usher, so I started watching that. It just didn't hold my attention. I don't know. This wasn't like the best story ever, but I really did enjoy it when we read it, so. Number 11. Book number 10 might seem kind of surprising because you're like, wait, why is a 3-star book above a 4-star book? Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I rate these books right after I read them, and then now I'm thinking back through my year, and maybe these aren't the most accurate ratings, but this is what I believe when I just like kind of look back and the rememberability of these books. So the next book is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. I gave this book 3 stars. I initially started listening to this book only on audio. And for me, it was really hard to understand what was going on because the audio didn't do a really good job of differentiating between the mixed media elements. So after a couple of chapters, I stopped and got the Kindle book. That helped tremendously. I was able to immersion read this, and the stories made a lot more sense after I could see the different news articles and different text messages or whatever was going on in the story. That added a huge mysteriousness to the plot, and this is a mystery thriller, so that was really helpful helpful to see, not just hear. There was some nice backstory about the main character Ruby and her husbands, which did give off a Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibe, just because you learn a lot about these different characters and she's got a lot of husbands. Not as many as Evelyn Hugo, but you know. Ruby seemed a little bit more like she had some mental health issues. The characters in this story weren't very likable or lovable at all, so it was kind of hard to root for them, but overall I had a really fun time reading this book, and it was actually our first book club pick of the year. So it was our January pick of 2024. Coming in at number 9, we have We Are Also Good at Smiling by Amber McBride. This cover is just simply gorgeous, like probably the prettiest book that we read all year. I gave this book 4 stars. This was actually my pick for August, and I also immersion read this book. The writing in this book is really poetic and really lyrical. Actually, if you look at the book, it is done in this like poetry verse kind of style. It's very short, very quick to get through. I really liked this book, and I initially picked this book because it does talk about mental health, specifically clinical depression, generational trauma. There's some racism that's talked about in this book. And there were actually some really cool quotes that I took from this book. So for example, sometimes sorrow and joy exist together. Like, yeah, these two feelings can exist at the same time. It doesn't have to be you feel sorrow or joy. You can feel both. The garden is different each time. You carry different stories. So as your garden grows, it can change. You can plant new things. Like, I just thought that was really beautiful. And another thing just to kind of like help people push on is you have risen out of sorrow before. These little quotes, they weren't like very big or monumental quotes or anything, but as I was reading this story, I was like, wow, that is so powerful. So this is definitely a great book for a mental health rep. I think that it's worth picking up if you're interested in reading this one. Definitely a book I'd recommend. We actually had a lot of people in our group chat on Discord that really liked this book and really liked the story behind it. So don't just take it from me. Our members are also saying the same thing. So book number 8, Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This was not my first Sophie Lark book, but it is the first book in the Brutal Birthright series. This follows Ada Gallos and Callum Griffin. This is definitely a romance. There's a mafia situation going on. I absolutely loved the actual enemies to lovers vibes of this story. So Ada is literally trying to kill Callum. Usually in romance books, they'll have what they deem as enemies to lovers, but this one is truly enemies to lovers. Other books I feel like are more like hate to love. This is definitely more enemies to lovers. Ada is literally trying to kill Callum. You'll find out the whole reasoning behind the cover art. But in general, I thought that the main female character of this story was just such a badass. I really loved her and her personality. She was very feisty and she had really good survival instincts. I definitely want to continue on in this series, so you will be seeing this book or other books listed in a upcoming video that feature me needing to finish certain series. So this is one that I will be continuing. Coming in at number 7, we have so far the highest rated book, Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice by El Casimano. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It was such a wild and fun ride with Finley, Vero, and just about like every character that you've encountered so far in the Finley Donovan series. So the first book in this series, Finley Donovan is Killing It, I feel like was my favorite until this came along. This one just has so much action going on. It's actually crazy to just read how much went down in only one weekend. Like, this whole book took place during one weekend. There were a lot of sneaking off incidents and secrets. There is a cliffhanger, so we're on the edge of our seats waiting for the next book to come out. Fun fact with this book in particular, I got to meet El Casimano when she came to my area. I got her to sign my book, and also, if you can't see this other signature, this is Angela Dawson, which is the narrator of the Finley Donovan series. So she was there as well. That was actually their little meet cute. That was the first time they had ever met. They obviously talked to each other before, but it was really cool to meet both of them. So I had both of them sign my copy of this book, and I cannot wait to read the next one in the series. Hear me out on this next book. I believe this is the 6th book, so this is my middle of the road book. I gave this 3.5 stars, but I love this series. After reading the 2nd book in this series, I'm all in, okay? But reading this first book was slow, okay? It is a slow burn, and that's what killed me through this book, but I loved it, okay? So, Spark of the Everflame. If you didn't know, my friends and I got to interview Penn Cole this year, and that was so exciting. I love this book, but I love Glow even more. Sadly, this for me was only a 3.5 star. Like I said, it's definitely a slow burn. Like, you literally get no action until probably 70%. There's a lot of world building that's going on, a lot of politics that are involved, a lot of secrets that are kind of being brought up. Just, you're trying to figure out everything that's going on in this world. I absolutely love the characters like DM and her brother Teller, and then you meet Luther in the story, and then Luther's whole Courbois family. This story is fantastic. If you haven't read this book, what are you waiting for? Like, out of any of the books that I mentioned today, if you were to pick up any of them and continue on in the series, you have to read Spark of the Everflame. So what are you waiting for? I mean, stay, watch the rest of my video, but after you finish the video, go read this book. While we're here, tap that like button for me, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more of my content. Coming in at number 5, we have Haunted Ever After. This is by Jen DeLuca. So I give this book 4 stars. This is set in a small Florida town called Boneyard Key, and the town residents definitely lean into their ghostly history. Now, Cassie ends up moving to this town, finds out that her house is inhabited by a ghost. She finds this out because like her laptop won't charge. She's noticed that her magnets on the fridge have moved and been rearranged. While she's trying to like uncover what the heck is going on with her house, she's still trying to keep up with her work requirements, so she ends up going to the local coffee shop, which is called Hallowed Grounds. That's where she meets Nick, the love interest in this story. I really enjoyed this book overall. It hit me in my feels at times because of some of the things that the main female character was going through. I also really loved how the author took us on this historical journey without making it sound like historical fiction or like history telling that's kind of boring. Like, it was a fun time. There was also mystery interspersed throughout all the romance. And even though it doesn't take place in October, it was still a really great spooky read. We're getting into the really good books now. I think all of these were pretty high up on my list. I want to say they might have all been 5 stars, but we'll see. So, number 4. A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. So this is the first book in the Saga of the Unfated series. The next one should be coming out in 2025. This one definitely takes us on a journey. In this story, you start out in a small fishing village where you meet Freya. She is married to Vragi, who is a worthless piece of crap, in my opinion. Like, he is a terrible husband. Without spoiling things too much, things happen. And Freya is forced to go with someone named Snorri. Snorri has a son named Bjorn, I don't know how to say it, who ends up falling in love with Freya. And of course she's in love with him. He'll do anything for her and he'll stand by her side. Like, one of my favorite quotes from this book is, "Where you go, I will go, born in fire." That's her nickname. Even if it's to the gates of Valhalla. Like, this dude's willing to go to the freaking gates of Valhalla for her. He loves her. So overall, this is a Norse-inspired romantasy that features forbidden love. There's obviously magic, betrayal, even death. It gave me some like Iron Flame vibes at the end, where you like root for the main love interest and then you find out some secrets and you're kind of like, wait, what? Hold on. So we need to figure out what's happening in book number 2. I highly recommend picking up this book if you're someone who loves romantasy. Obviously, like fantasy world building, that's done really, really well in this book. There's solid character progression and the writing is just beautiful. I absolutely love the writing in this book. So if you're excited for book 2 coming out, it's called A Curse Carved in Bone. It comes out on May 13th, 2025, so we don't have too much longer to wait. All right, top 3, here we go. So in September, Bree got to pick the book because it was her birthday month, and we did a little buddy read of one book first because the book that she picked was actually the second in the series. So we initially read The House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and then the book that she actually picked was Somewhere Beyond the Sea, also by TJ Klune. I gave this book 5 stars. I gave this one 5 stars. Like, these books are freaking fantastic. I absolutely love everything that TJ Klune put into these books. The characters are everything. This is definitely a character-driven story. The characters are so cute. It's such a wholesome story. I loved the whole underlying theme of acceptance and loving people as they are. There was a lot of like killing with kindness, you know, showing people that just because you have been stereotypically one way or have acted some way in the past, like it doesn't predict your future. It doesn't make you or define you or anything like that. You can carve your own path. If you haven't read these books, I don't know what you're waiting for. Yeah, just so cute. I love them so, so much. Book number 2, you're gonna need to check your trigger warnings for, because it is Hills of Shivers and Shadows by Pam Godwin. Definitely, by far, the darkest book I have ever read. This follows Frankie, and she has been abducted by somebody, and she then meets 3 other somebodies in a remote cabin in Alaska. She has to survive along with these 4 other men in the heart of the winter in Alaska, where rations are getting low and she really has to rely on her survival instincts to get out alive, because these men are feral. I think it's listed as a dark romance. Do not go into this book thinking that you're gonna have some happy, lovely romance going on. Not even like a dominant daddy kind of romance where he's like grabbing her by the throat and fucking her heart. Like, no. This deals with some really deep shit, okay? Like, this ain't for the faint of heart. Some people may really, really love this, because I would consider this to be a pitch black book, whereas others may think that the triggers are too much for them. And when I say that these triggers are a lot, it was even a lot for me. Okay, and I can handle quite a bit. Now, you need to go in and check your trigger warnings. I am serious about this book, but I absolutely devoured it and I loved it. I gave this 5 stars. I love me some Pam Godwin. I can't wait to read book 2. So we do have a little buddy read that's coming up for book 2. If you're interested, you gotta join the Discord down below. Okay, and finally, we've made it to the end. So if you've read all of our books this year, or you know what all the book club picks were, you would know what the last book is and what the number 1 spot was taken by. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. This book was another 5-star. I'm very happy with this being our book club pick for December. One of my favorite things about this book was the writing style in particular. It broke the 4th wall. It's one of the reasons why I love Deadpool so much, because not only is Deadpool's girl named Vanessa, but Deadpool breaks the 4th wall a lot and he's hilarious, okay? Like Ryan Reynolds, I love him as Deadpool. This book broke the 4th wall. You had a lot of rhyming going on. It was a Grinch retelling, but more of like a romantic, you know, lovey-dovey story where you have 2 neighbors. They're fighting to become the Christmas Kringle, and, you know, they sabotage each other as much as they can. If you haven't read this book this holiday season, if you've still got time, I definitely recommend picking this one up. If you have the ability to get the audio, it's exclusive to Audible, but it is fantastic. It heightened my reading experience and I enjoyed it so much. So I definitely recommend picking up the audio if you're going to read along with the physical book. Don't just read the physical book alone. So definitely my number 1 pick of the year, but I think overall we had a lot of really good picks. So if you have read any of the books with us this year, let me know what your favorites are and what your number 1 was. Also, don't forget to go check out Bree's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, make sure you head over to Bree's channel, like her video, and subscribe to her as well. We look forward to getting into more book club discussions in 2025, and we are so excited to announce the book club picks a lot sooner, so that way people have the ability to get the books much quicker rather than waiting till like a couple weeks before or like a month before or anything like that. We do have the first 3 months of 2025 planned out already. So in January, we're going to be reading The Baby Dragon Cafe. In February, we're reading Give Me Butterflies. And in March, we're reading Magnolia Parks. So a good balance between books that have already come out and books that are coming out, our new releases and things like that. We hope that you all have a wonderful, happy holiday season, and we will see you hoes next year. Bye!
Everywhere on TV, couples and Christmas trees, gift wrapping and cheese.